Hello, Hoosier Nation. We come back to you once again on an early July post-Independence Day podcast episode. Lots happening in the world of IU basketball. IU football is less than 2 months away. 8 weeks. 8 weeks from Friday. And I'm not going to lie, Matt, got a little hankering for it. Got a little hunger for football season. Last year is last year. We're not going to dive too much into football today, but all I'm saying is those episodes are coming your way, and I'm amped up to see Tom Allen and Walt Bell and Chad Wilt and this Hoosier team crush Illinois in week 1. But like I said, we'll put a little pause on that. More basketball today for sure, and so much more here on episode 256. On episode 256 of the Hoosier Sound, where we're the official podcast of Indiana HQ, recording this edition of the Hoosier Sound on Friday, July 8th, 2022, where I'm your host, Nithin Krishnan. Here with me tonight is my normal co-host, Matt Lukens. Matt, last week, we were one of the first podcasts to come on the air and record after all the crazy Big Ten expansion stuff. USC and UCLA are coming here. Do you have any additional thoughts before we shift to IU basketball? Because, wow, I mean, in the last week and a half, things have gone absolutely crazy.
I feel like if there was a Big Ten podcast about 20 years ago, they probably would have said the same thing. But can Notre Dame hurry up, please? Seriously, like I feel like they're the ones holding back the rest of the Big Ten expansion at this point. They're kind of like a key piece in getting the likes of Stanford, and then even maybe pulling some of the East Coast schools
That's
in.
it, yeah.
And it really sucks that they're just kind of like, what the conference are going? I don't know.
I want to be wanted. Can somebody please want us more, pay us more? Yeah, Notre Dame is the Kevin Durant of the NCAA, right? Like you got to wait for that domino to fall before everything else gets going.
If it even falls, right? It's like they're like Sean Marks, the GM for the Nets.
Yeah.
They're asking for LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and 17 first-round picks for Kevin Durant, which doesn't make any sense. So,
the key to the city, and the rights to the Hollywood side.
I get they're Notre Dame and a national brand, but they're only a national brand in let's be honest, in football. In basketball, they are mediocre. And then in every other sport, they're okay. But it's kind of like, are we gonna rip our arms and legs off to hand it to Notre Dame here? Like we have a good deal. Like we're waiting for you to join us, and can you just hurry it up, please? Because you're again holding everything up. So
yeah, exactly. You're holding everything up. But to answer your question, I think kind of you do everything in your power to get Notre Dame's brand into this league because, well, even the football piece, it is Notre Dame. And regardless of what you think about the school, you can't deny that it is famous or infamous. So, it's a notorious institution, and you want that history, you want that tradition, you want those academics into your conference if you can get it. Sure. I think it is an interesting question, right? Would Notre Dame be this big of a deal if they were never independent in the first place? I don't know. We'll save that for the Notre Dame sound if that podcast ever gets off the ground. Matt, I was sitting here preparing for this week's podcast episode, and I was thinking, what's missing? I feel like something's missing right now in the world of IU basketball. And, everyone's fired up, and we were fired up last week over Indiana announcing their non-conference schedule and those 4 high-powered heavyweight matchups. And then it hit me like a ton of bricks. I said, if Indiana loses any of those other 7 games, it's going to be kind of a problem. Right? A win over Arizona or a win over Kansas or a win over North Carolina gets nullified if you lose to Morehead State on opening night. So here's what we're going to do, folks, for the next, I don't know, handful of minutes or so, our first segment of the show tonight. We're going to give you a little primer on the 7 dwarfs on this non-conference schedule. Okay, the 7 teams you don't know much about, the 7 teams that you glazed over when Indiana announced their non-conference schedule last week. And here we go, folks. Opening night. I know you're excited. We're all excited to see this new look. I know it's weird to say, but we have incoming freshmen that are excited, that are looking forward to making a difference. Of course, plenty of stalwarts that come over from this past season here for Indiana as well. Opening night against Morehead State, yes, from the Ohio Valley Conference, the Eagles, a team that you've seen a little bit here and there make it into the NCAA tournament, a team that was once the home of eventual NBA player Kenneth Fareed. They beat Louisville in the NCAA tournament, but this upcoming season, Morehead State not expected to be all that great. Morehead State plays slow tempo style. They had a good season last year, but a couple of their quality players transferred out. Johnny Broome went to Auburn. Talon Cooper went to Minnesota. Now, Matt, the one thing I will say about Morehead State on opening night is that they do like moving the basketball. They had one of the highest assist rates in college basketball last season. Under that context, what does Indiana need to watch out for on opening night, even though, look, they're going to be 25-point favorites that first game?
I think it'd be more than 25-point favorites, honestly. Look, I don't see Morehead State having any chance. With a lot of these teams we're going to talk about today, I do not see these teams having much of a chance against us, even if it's home, neutral, or whatever it is. But if we're going to be honest, a team that can move the ball really well against a defense that's adding new people could cover. And so I especially with this team, I think I would look out maybe for some first game woes. Just
maybe a little jitters, right?
On defense. On offense, I feel like we should absolutely overpower them. Again, I think losing Johnny Broome to Auburn and Talon Cooper to Minnesota is way too much for most teams, let alone a Morehead State team that's not a Power 5 school to recover from. But again, like that 15th in assist rate, that's going to carry over regardless of how many people are going to be there. That's how they play, which is really awesome. So I'm really looking forward to playing them because they're actually a really good way to start the season off. And again, we play 1/300th school next, and then it's Xavier. So like it's good to get to have a team in there that's actually gonna like test you and play like a decent style of basketball.
Exactly, respectable. They'll beat you if you have a 2 for 20 night from 3 and turn the ball over 20 times. Again, that ball movement, something
which would be an absolute disaster, by the way.
We're not even going to entertain that possibility. That 300th ranked team you're talking about in game 2 is Bethune-Cookman, the Wildcats, an HBCU out of the SWAC. Fun fact, their head coach is also their athletic director, and he's a previous NBA All-Star, 2-time NBA All-Star, and Reggie Theus. He's not the only player or person, coach or person, I should say, with NBA ties in the 7 dwarfs portion of the Indiana schedule. But the Wildcats, not supposed to be great this year. Indiana is going to beat them, and Indiana is going to be a 30-point favorite against these guys roughly. But here's a fun note. Of these 7 other teams on the schedule, Bethune-Cookman is the only one of them that had a player test the NBA draft waters. And, well, 6'5" guard Joe French passed on going to the next level and returned to Bethune-Cookman. So he's somebody who will be a sore spot. He will be the focus of the game plan for Indiana in game 2. Always have to watch out for those potential NBA prospects, Matt. He's a 6'5" guard. if you ask me, this is a great opportunity for someone like Jalen Hood-Schifino or Tamar Bates to put together a solid defensive game in game number 2 on the schedule.
Yeah, it gives them a good matchup for our guards to have to guard a really good player. I think he's actually a high level for people who like, oh, he rejected for the draft. Like, shouldn't most people? Like, he averaged like 18 points per game last year. Okay. 16 points per game and shot like 40+% from 3. Good guard. He's a big guard. He's not going to be a guy that's going to be crossing us over the entire time. He's not a small point guard. He's not going to be dishing it out, but he hits shots. And again, you've seen people come into Assembly Hall and it's a shooter's gym. So get hot and all of a sudden solo carry a game. So Joe French is one of those guys that, our guys have the challenge of making sure that in order to cover the game for all of us sports bettors out there, they guard him to their utmost ability, which is, it's good because the next game is Xavier, who has some guards that can do the same exact thing. So I'm looking forward to seeing how Joe French plays. And again, Joe French is only a sophomore, by the way.
Yeah.
So he's somebody to look at. There's a couple guys on a couple of these teams that transferred last year to teams that they played. So again, I'm not going to be saying that Joe French is going to be Indiana Hoosier in 2023, 24, but I'm saying is that a lot of these smaller schools that have one good player and you invite them over, you get a really good personal.
It's an official visit, isn't it?
Yeah, it's more than an official visit. You get film on them. You see how they practice in pregame. You get to talk to them after the game. Yeah. Like it's way more than an official visit. It's about as intimate as you can get as a basketball and on meeting somebody. So that's not on your team. So I'm interested to see how he plays and whatnot, because again, he's a big guard who can kind of play that 2-3 wing that can shoot it. He's that kind of guy that this team has been craving for a long time now.
Yeah, a little discount Johnny Davis, that type of player here. Extreme discount. Now Bethune-Cookman last year played a number of, whatever you want to call it, high major teams in their non-conference schedule. Went to South Florida, went to Utah, faced a decent Liberty mid-major squad, went to UCF, went to NC State. Matt, Joe French, when Bethune-Cookman went to Seton Hall last season, he scored 30 against the Pirates. A quality Big East squad. He went 12 for 21 from the field, 8 for 14 from downtown in a game that Bethune-Cookman lost by 14 points. Again, he's got an NBA All-Star guiding him in Reggie Theus. Bethune-Cookman's a team that Indiana cannot sleep on, even though, as I've mentioned, yes, this is a team that is projected to finish somewhere in the 300s. They finished 333 last season in the Ken Palm ratings. One fun stat about Bethune-Cookman last year, barely shot the 3 ball, 355th in 3-point rate, even with Joe French on their squad. Of course, look, every game you take it with a grain of salt. We'll see what happens when Bethune-Cookman comes to Assembly Hall in game 2. Matt, as you mentioned, the Xavier game follows that, but after Indiana beats the Musketeers by 30, they don't return to Assembly Hall. Actually, Indiana will play a non-conference game at a technically neutral site at Bankers Life Fieldhouse against the Miami, Ohio Redhawks, only 2 days after they play Xavier. So they don't have a week to relax and refresh and all that kind of thing. 2 days after they play Xavier, they take on Miami, Ohio. Indiana is 13-1 all time against the Redhawks, but they have not faced them since 1995. And well, here's the deal, folks. We don't think, based on our quick analysis of Miami, Ohio, there's going to be much action at Bankers Life Fieldhouse on November 20th. I'm anticipating this game to be pretty quick.
Chills.
Pretty lopsided. The Bart Torvik model projects Miami, Ohio to also be in the 300s this upcoming year. Their top scorer from last season, Day Grant, he transferred to Duquesne. But Matt, one interesting note about the Redhawks, a number of Indiana players on their squad. Does that mean anything with this game in Bankers Life Fieldhouse?
Absolutely does. I mean, state championships are now held in Bankers Life. You know, some of these guys have played games in Bankers Life previously. So they're going to not only be familiar with the gym, it's going to have some sentimental value coming home, playing the state school in front of their home, like, you know, if their families or whatnot in Indianapolis. It's a trap game. Every single time we play a team that has guys from Indiana, you know, can play basketball, right? They play Indiana high school basketball. They can play. And so, like, you saw it with Indiana States of the previous years. You've seen it with the IPFWs, even on good years,
sweating, man.
right?
You're making me sweat here.
Even on years in which we had a really good team, should have done better. We've struggled with teams that have a bigger Indiana presence, again, because they have that chip on their shoulder that they feel like they should have been recruited to the school, and they grew up IU fans or they grew up Purdue fans and they still hate our guts. It's just a quintessential Indiana college basketball and high school basketball thing. So again, it's going to be fun to watch us play Miami. Now, that being said, we should absolutely destroy them.
Exactly.
They did lose their best player to Duquesne and Day Grant. And look, they might have a bunch of Indiana guys, but we're going to be honest, there's a reason why they're not in Indiana, and that's because they're tiered below the guys that we currently have at school. So on talent alone, on the fact that we're playing in Bankers Life, which always seems to be a bit of a comfort for our squad, because we always play well at Bankers Life, I feel like this should be a not a walk in the park, but this should be a fairly easy win. And a nice match. I like this matchup. I like playing like smaller because we get the neutral court game, which looks good for our scheduling. Even though they're a 300 level team, it's not at home. It's a nice, like, it moves it from like what it's not like
it might bump it up to a Q3 instead of a Q4.
Yeah.
We'll see. It depends on how Miami, Ohio does over the course of their season.
Yeah, we're working up the system here. We're working the system. I like it.
I mean, look, we've seen the selection committee throw out that record away from home metric, right? How do you do in games not in your home arena? Well, technically, this one wouldn't be that. So, you know, playing at Bankers Life may be a way for Indiana to circumvent the system a little bit. Let's give a shout out to the Indiana natives on the Miami, Ohio roster. Guard Mekhi Larry is from Evansville, Bossy. He's a key factor in their starting lineup as well. Keep an eye out for him potentially being Miami, Ohio's best player this upcoming season. How about Ryan Mabry, a freshman guard from LaPorte, Indiana, as well as Billy Smith, who's a Brebeuf Jesuit grad from Indianapolis. Their head coach, a first-year head coach, but someone who has had high major experience. The most recent coach at Xavier is now the coach of Miami, Ohio, Travis Steele. He lost his job at Xavier after they missed the NCAA tournament. Sean Miller took over there. Travis Steele now the head coach at Miami, Ohio in year one. Interesting note. Maybe that means something. Maybe it doesn't. But Travis Steele, again, he's not going to be blinded by any kind of Indianapolis spotlight. He's played his fair share of tough games over in the Big East. Matt, Indiana's fourth scrub, in quotes, opponent is Little Rock. That's a return to Assembly Hall here. Miami, Ohio, Little Rock, and Jackson State are all part of the Hoosier Classic. Little Rock comes just 3 days after Indiana plays Miami, Ohio. So Mike Woodson is banking on getting fat on some non-conference wins here in a pretty short time period before Thanksgiving. Matt, this Little Rock team, far gone are their days where Chris Beard was their head coach. That's for sure. Indiana gets a little bit of a reprieve here. This Little Rock team is not expected to be good in the Sun Belt Conference. Indiana is 2-0 all time. And so against Little Rock, so they shouldn't have too much concern there either. The last game was in 1994 when Indiana beat Little Rock 77-53. They are the Trojans, and last year finished 328th in the KenPom ratings. They suck at rebounding, in all honesty. Matt, is this going to be the game where Trace Jackson Davis sets an Indiana record for boards in a contest, or maybe just possibly Malik Renault gets a double-double for the first time in his IU career?
I would say that's more likely than Trace getting the rebounding record, especially since Trace himself is not the best at rebounding either. If anything, it would be somebody like Jordan Geronimo could probably go and get at this game. Yeah, the way they play, they don't rebound very well. Take a lot of shots and then get back on defense. So it leads to teams getting a lot of rebounds against them and not a lot of second chance points is what it is. Again, there's a reason why they were literally 328th in KenPom last year. They're not good. They might be a little bit better this year, given the fact that I think they're returning a bunch of minutes this year. It doesn't really matter when you're returning minutes of a 328th ranked team in KenPom, but it's whatever. Yeah, again, having no Chris Beard kind of sucks. You can ask a lot of college basketball, well, not a lot of college basketball teams. You'd think Texas Tech would feel bad about it, but they've actually bounced back pretty well from their breakup. But Little Rock has not done that. Little Rock is the ex-girlfriend that's gone and started dating a drug abuser. So they have fallen off a cliff, and you don't really feel bad about the breakup. So yeah, so I feel bad for Little Rock, but they're gonna lose by 25 in Assembly Hall, so good for them.
Exactly. And again, this is
go get the bag.
I mean, yeah, it's a business model, right? In the NCAA, it's the reason a lot of these Division I schools do this, and go visit some of the more high-powered teams in the game. Again, this would be Indiana's first game at Assembly Hall in about 2 weeks' time after the second game of the season. So look, no downside to that. Interesting about Little Rock, plenty of global presence on their roster. How about players here from Serbia, from Bosnia, Canada, of course, as well. Multiple players from Bosnia and Serbia on this roster. But just to make sure everything's balanced out, guard CJ White hails from Little Rock. And he's an SMU transfer, so head coach Daryl Walker, he knows he's trying a new tactic in the Sun Belt. Get maybe some of that European influence onto his basketball team, play that style of game, and maybe cause teams some problems here. We'll see how that works over the course of the upcoming season for them, but I don't expect any difficulties against for the Hoosiers against this team. The final game of the Hoosier Classic will be an opponent that Indiana faced last season in Jackson State. Again, that's 2 days after Indiana faces Little Rock. 2 games in 3 days at Assembly Hall. That sounds like an absolute blast. Jackson State, though, in the time since they faced Indiana last season, when the Hoosiers won 70-35, they decided to move on in their head coaching position, and they've gone out. And how about this? They've hired recent NBA player Mo Williams to run their program this upcoming season. That's an interesting little quirk as far as Jackson State's schedule, as Jackson State's program is concerned. They're also an HBCU. Last season, they finished 277th in the KenPom ratings. They are projected to get better. A team that can defend, defend at a pretty high level on a good night. Matt, look, this is Indiana's final game before the non-conference gauntlet hits What are you looking for out of IU in this Jackson State contest?
Send Mo Williams back to NBA. No, this comes off the third game in a row now that we've played a team that's going to be in the 200s to 300s range. Just consistency at this point. Like slight improvements, maybe a little bit of some rust shaking off here. Again, the rust should be totally off by this point, actually, given the fact they've already played Xavier away. But the team should come out, play well, and absolutely impose their will on a team that's, let's be honest, worse than Indiana.
Yeah, exactly. They are. It's not even a conversation. Indiana had not played Jackson State before until last season, and now they're going to face them twice in as many years. Jackson State did lose forward Javius McInnes to Ole Miss in the transfer portal. So Indiana, avoids playing sort of a high major potential type player on this Jackson State Tigers team. Something that may concern Mike Woodson as he prepares for this game. Jackson State plays at one of the slowest tempos in college basketball. At least that's what they did last year. Maybe Mo Williams changes that up. Not sure. We will see. There are two more non-conference games left that we need to talk about. But first, it's time for Who Won the Week this past week in IU sports. And, well, Indiana University announced their Athletes of the Year for the 21-22 campaign, and sophomore Taryn Gilliland, as well as junior Brendan Burns, both won Athlete of the Year for Indiana University. Gilliland was the CSCAA, the College Swimming Coaches Association Diver of the Year. She is an All-American in all three diving disciples, the 1 meter springboard, the 3 meter springboard, and the platform. And in the platform, she won an NCAA championship for a second consecutive year. Brendan Burns wins the NCAA champion, the 200 meter butterfly, all Big Ten team, first team, I should say, 4-time Big Ten swimmer of the week. So shout out to Taryn Gilliland and Brendan Burns for winning Indiana University Athlete of the Year for this past year. Woo. A friendly reminder, if you would like to subscribe to our podcast for free 99. All you have to do is search for The Hoosier Sound wherever you listen to podcasts. Stay up to date with all of our information by following us on Twitter at Indiana HQ and at The Hoosier Sound. If you enjoy our show, this part is important. Leave us a review, tell a friend, share our links. Your support really helps us grow this podcast and reach more passionate IU fans such as yourself with football season just around the corner. Matt, look, we're not going to dive into a game-by-game breakdown of the heavyweights, but after Indiana faces Jackson State, it's North Carolina. It's two Big Ten games. And then it's Arizona. And then it's a road game at Kansas. Matt, I am hoping and praying those two Big Ten games are Northwestern and Minnesota or Penn State and Nebraska, because God willing, if Indiana gets a Michigan or a Michigan State or a Purdue for some reason in that first Big Ten week, I'm going to lose my mind.
It's going to be quite the stretch. But again, that's how teams improve, right? Is from game to game, playing really good opponents. So I don't think we can say the sky is falling. They just need to win half these games. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
To stay afloat.
And keep scoring par, right? Keep scoring par. No bogeys or double bogeys.
Yeah, I like us. I think I like our matchup against UNC, by the way, a lot. The more I think about it, it's again at home, and if I'm going to be honest, I think they had a bit of a fluky run to the Final Four last year, much like UCLA did the year before. They're going to be a much improved team because they added
Pete Nance, for example, out of Northwestern. Good recruiting, incoming recruiting class. Jalen Washington out of Gary Westside.
They've added some good pieces, but again, I still think that I'm looking at them and I'm like, they could have just
Yeah,
But
well, and they come to Bloomington, right? It's not in Chapel Hill. It's not neutral site.
yes.
I actually agree with you. I think of all those 4 heavyweight games, Indiana may very well have the best chance of winning that North Carolina game for no other reason than it's at home. And Assembly Hall is going to be absolutely monstrous.
And I think we can win the Arizona game. Now, Arizona's, again, reloaded as well, but not as well because North Carolina brought everybody back. But Arizona had lost a ton and is reloading.
Yeah.
So I think Tommy Lloyd's a fantastic coach. I thought he was a fantastic hire when they hired him. I was like, holy crap, Arizona can pull that guy away from Gonzaga. Like that's fantastic for them. But still, second year as a head coach with a basically brand new roster, and you're going to be fully recommitting all the scoring around and trying to redistribute it to different players. And on neutral court, I like our chances at that game. And then I don't think we have any shot in hell of beating Kansas away. I even though they also lost people.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
It's a better shot than I think normally people would look at Kansas away from home and Allen Fieldhouse and be like, well, we're losing that game. We have a better shot at it than just like looking at it on paper, but I still don't think it's going to be a W on the schedule. But yeah, so then we have Elon, right?
And comes in. Look, this Elon team, fascinating program here. They come out of the Colonial Athletic Conference, finished 247 in Ken Palm last year, and they've got a new head coach. Again, interesting. A number of these teams, and as I've called it before, the Seven Dwarfs part of the Indiana schedule. New head coaches the upcoming season for Elon. By the way, the Elon Phoenix. That's their team name, the Phoenix. New head coach Billy Taylor, former Iowa assistant, Iowa City, Frantown. That was his last stop before he took over as head coach at Elon. The last 3 seasons, he was an assistant on the Iowa men's basketball staff, previous Division I head coaching experience as well. However, it's a transition year for Elon. Their top 3 scorers transferred out, and the Phoenix are projected to finish in the low 300s per the Bart Torvik model for this upcoming season. But it's Iowa-style basketball. They're going to love shooting the 3. They're going to love the tempo aspect of it. Matt, Elon, again, Indiana's going to be a significant favorite, but that Iowa flavor leading their program, to me, gives me a little concern.
It does give me a little bit of concern. Again, Elon, I think they're probably the trickiest of the teams that we're going to play. Everybody's in like the 300th area, but again, having a former assistant head coach of a team that you've had some battles with, they're going to know you more intimately than all the other schools will for the most part. And even though I think like Mo Williams is a good basketball mind, and we played Bethune-Cookman. Or
played Jackson State.
Jackson State last year. But I think having that scouting, and he might have even been the assignment on us, right? Once or twice at Iowa. So like actually really knowing how we play and our players, they're going to be more competitive than what their ranking is going to be. So.
Yeah, very, very true there. I think of all of these teams, Bethune-Cookman might be the team Indiana's got to watch out for the most. But again, just having Iowa pedigree here taking over the program could be a little bit of a concern. Just to give you a bit of a zoomed out snapshot of the schedule here, Indiana's last brutal non-conference gauntlet game is that road game at Kansas, December 17th. Indiana would return home to Assembly Hall to face Elon on December 20th. And then the final non-conference game is a home meeting against Kennesaw State, the Owls. They finished 223rd in the Ken Palm ratings this past year. A handful of decent players. This Kennesaw State team was somewhat competitive last season in a tough non-conference schedule. They were within arm's reach of Nebraska, within arm's reach of Iowa State last year. not a horrible basketball team. I think this Elon Kennesaw State duo will give Indiana some good opportunity to tweak some things before Big Ten play. Chris Youngblood is a decent scorer. Terrell Burton can really move the basketball. Good assist numbers for him. This Kennesaw State team, Matt, again, not one I would be sweating over if I was Indiana, but a couple of good players could be a thorn for 15, 20, 25 minutes at Assembly Hall, that final non-conference game.
Yes. Again, all these teams, I'm terrified of playing because, if we have a bad performance against Minnesota, it's like we had a bad game. You have a bad performance against Kennesaw State, and the entire fan base thinks that Mike Woodson should be fired, and the sky's falling. And again, Kennesaw State on paper should be the best team that we play. I said Elon probably will be the hardest team to play because they have a bit of a familiar knowledge. Terrell Burton's a bit of a problem. He's a really good passer of the ball, and they've been competitive with teams, like you said, in the past, like Creighton, Iowa State, Nebraska. You should still cover. If this team has the goals of competing for a national championship, competing for a Big Ten title, Kennesaw State should not be a problem. So like I said, with all these teams, yes, we projected them all to be a win. I don't think they're all going to be easy cakewalks. Even though they're ranked 300 or whatever, like some of those schools can show up on any given day and compete. This is Division I college basketball, and who knows, maybe we find some future transfer targets in there. That's how things are working these days in the transfer portal. So, that's the non-conference schedule for Indiana.
That's that. And per the upcoming season projections in the Bart Torvik model, Morehead State, Jackson State, as well as Kennesaw State are the three toughest teams. Statistically, of course, the model will change and shift here over the next few months before opening day as well, for additional data and things like that. But interesting to see nonetheless. Matt, of course, if you look at these 7 games overall, are there scholarship players you're looking at, whether starting lineup or bench players, to really step up here in these 7 games? Of course, each individual game will be different. But if I ask you, who's the 1 or 2 scholarship players that you're paying attention to in these 7 winnable games that Indiana, again, everyone's going to be hoping to win by 30 points?
Yes. What was the question again? Sorry, I lagged out there.
Which player are you looking to step up in these 7 games?
I'm not looking for any of the starters. Well, I'm not looking for any of the guys that are already in concrete.
I agree completely.
I don't think Xavier Johnson needs to step up. No. I don't think Trey Jackson Davis needs to step up. I don't think Race Thompson needs to step up. I don't think the freshmen need to step up either. And by freshman, I mean, I don't think Malik Renault and Jalen Hood-Schifino need to step up at all. I think they're fine. The people I'm staring directly at, I mean, absolutely looking them in the eyes, George Geronimo, Caleb Banks, Miller Kopp, and Trey Galloway, if he's playing, and coming back from an injury. The guys that are fighting for that 3 spot on the team, Tamar Bates as well. You can add him in there as well. Can you shoot the 3? Can you help space the floor? And can you show some offensive creativity off the bounce? And because if you can do that, you're going to get playing time. And play decent defense. Like if you can be a solid piece to the starting lineup, you have all these games to prove that, maybe you're not consistent at it, but if you're showing spurts of it, that's all that matters, right? If we have if at the end of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 smaller non-conference games, that one of you guys has a 10-point outing and 4 or 5 of them,
Right.
that guy is going to be the favorite to be in the starting lineup. So these games are a huge opportunity for somebody like Tamar Bates to put himself ahead of the pack when it comes to playing time, or Jordan Geronimo for putting himself ahead of the pack, or Caleb Banks for breaking out into the pack.
And that's what I'm thinking. I have my eyes on the freshmen, Matt. These lopsided contests are a great opportunity to give some extended run to all 4 incoming freshmen, especially CJ Gunn, Caleb Banks, and Malik Renault. I'm looking for these 3 guys to find something that works for them that they're able to carry into Big Ten play. For Malik Renault, is it pick and rolls coming in as a reserve off the bench where he's really thriving? Or is it offensive rebounding that he develops as an identity in
When Nithin's got a bit of a coughing spurt here. He's dying. The Morehead States of the world have finally gotten to him. Too much Morehead State slander. They have sniped him from across the building.
I think we're good. But yeah, Gunn, Banks, Renault, those are the players I've got my eyes on, especially CJ Gunn too.
I forgot about CJ Gunn. Yes, CJ Gunn I would also add. He's a guy I got my eye on as well. Again, there's so much hype coming into the season from him, right? So much hype.
That's what I'm thinking. Is he someone who drains corner 3 after corner 3 after corner 3, becomes a sniper as a reserve, as a complementary piece? Or are we going to see CJ Gunn develop into a Armon Franklin type reserve in his first year during these non-conference games where he does a little bit of everything? Could he possibly supplant a Tamar Bates in the rotation? Could he possibly bypass someone like, I don't know, he's have these conversations. If you have an open mind going into these non-conference games, anything can happen. CJ Gunn and Caleb Banks spoke to the media this past week, and we're completely honest and transparent here. You can find the quotes on social media. I thought it was interesting. Caleb Banks said, as of right now, the IU coaching staff envisions him as a 3. It's a small forward role. We'll see how that plays out over the course of the upcoming season. Can't wait to see how that works out. We've got more coming for you as far as this IU basketball non-conference portion. We're going to talk to you about a best and a worst case scenario. Stay tuned for that. But first, let's give our social media shout out for this past week in IU sports. And we would be crazy if we didn't tip our cap to former Hoosier baseball legend Kyle Schwarber, who, while he was mic'd up on the most recent edition of Sunday Night Baseball, Schwarber said going to Indiana was the best thing that ever happened to him. And that was a crazy moment on social media. Everyone just drank that up. A great free advertisement for the school and the baseball program as well. It doesn't hurt. The baseball program right now, definitely any kind of good news for the team right now is welcome for sure. And you never need an excuse to shout out Kyle Schwarber there. Of course, Schwarber leads the National League in home runs too, taking the city of Philadelphia and Major League Baseball by storm. Great to see Kyle Schwarber doing big things with the Phillies, and of course giving IU a shout out whenever he has the opportunity.
He's the home run leader, right?
Yeah, in the National League. Yeah, Aaron Judge is still leading all of the majors and bombs, but Schwarber leading the National League. Cannot complain about that whatsoever. If you want to hear more from us or hear more about Indiana University athletics, all you have to do is follow us on Twitter, Facebook, or YouTube at Indiana HQ or at the Hoosier Sound. We're here to be a one-stop shop for you for all your IU needs. You can also find us on Instagram, but on Instagram, we're not Indiana HQ, but what are we, Matt?
Indiana.HQ, because we couldn't get Indiana HQ. Somebody's nabbed it from us. It is what it is.
Smart, though. Smart move. Beat us to the punch. I respect it. I respect the grind. Indiana.HQ on Instagram. You can find us there as well. We had a podcast poll. That's another thing we do on social media over at the Hoosier Sound on Twitter every week. And I asked Hoosier Nation, of the 11-game non-conference slate, what are you expecting out of Indiana? How many wins are you expecting the Hoosiers to nab in this stretch? And, you know, I was kind of looking forward to the results. How ambitious were Indiana fans when it comes to a non-conference schedule that had Arizona and North Carolina and Xavier and Kansas and some prickly schools and the other portion of the non-conference slate? Well, the record that took the trophy was 9-2. That's what Indiana fans, the majority of Indiana fans, are expecting to see in the upcoming non-conference slate. 53.3% of the 200 folks that voted said 9-2 is the record they're expecting to see. 8-3 came in second place, 28.1%. 15.6% of you said you're either going undefeated or I'll give them a loss. I only had 4 choices. So, 11-0 or 10-1, 15.6% of you said that. And then 3% of you said 7-4 or worse. So, okay, a little pessimistic there. But Matt, I'm seeing this as an 8-3 non-conference slate, but I think you said 9-2 is what you're thinking.
Yeah, 9-2 or 10-1, I think are the only 2 acceptable results for this. I'm telling you, I think it is the only 2 acceptable results for this non-conference. Again, as a team that's looking to compete at the highest level for a Big Ten championship and for seeding for March, any other result is unacceptable. Especially given the fact that you're bringing back a bunch of people and a bunch of talent.
Yeah.
So you should have a leg up on the competition as a much more comfortable unit together. So I don't see it as being acceptable that we could go 9-3 and have only 1 win against a Power 5 school at the end of the day, and that's going to be okay.
I think it'll be okay because
it would be okay because the Big Ten sucks so much.
And this is what happens. I mean, and I can't emphasize enough, all 4 non-conference teams that all 4 of the non-conference powers that Indiana has on their schedule, these are very possibly all going to be top 25 teams, and only one of them are playing at home. And so I still see that, if you do drop 3, it's not a nightmare. It's not a horror story, nothing like that. It's unfortunate. It's disappointing. It's this, it's that. But that's where I'm setting my bar. I'm setting my bar at 8-3. Learn, as long as, and I think this piece is important, just as important, if not more important, 8-3. But you learn about your team. You come together, you fight through some adversity, you get some unexpected contributions from your freshmen that you can carry into Big Ten play. Trace Jackson Davis shows a comfort in taking a 3-point shot here and there. Race Thompson shows a development in his passing ability or shooting ability. Tamar Bates and Miller Kopp hit an extra 3 or 2 per game. And if that happens and you still drop 3 games, I'm all fine with it. I'm saying take me into the Big Ten season. Can't wait to see how it goes. So overall, that's what I'm looking at as far as the non-conference slate is concerned. If you're going to be 8-3, but I'm getting contributions from Bates and Kopp, I'm getting results. I'm getting learnings from my team, things that I can take forward into the rest of the season, into the conference play, into Big Ten tournament play, into March Madness. I'm okay with an 8-3 record. But again, as far as the results of our Hoosier Sound podcast poll are concerned, 53.3% believe 9-2 is the answer. I'm guessing, Matt, the two L's, the 2 losses are what? Road Kansas and Road Xavier?
For me, I think we beat Xavier. I think it's going to be Kansas and one of Arizona or UNC.
Makes sense. All right, there you go. I'm curious. I'm curious. We don't have to give answers to this right now. I could see a world where Indiana is an underdog in all four of those games when the point spreads come out, which would be kind of funny
I think you'd be right to say that. Yeah,
going
I think
into.
not big underdogs though. I think like at max like 3 or 4 point underdogs.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, right. I think you're right. I think it'd be all small margins, but just kind of funny to think about it that way. Matt, as you look at the non-conference slate overall, the four powers, the seventh dwarves, what's the one aspect of basketball that you're looking to see from IU in the non-conference slate? Is it the 3-point shot? Is it the defensive play? Is it the way they move the basketball? What's the one, if you could pick one aspect of the game, what do you want to see IU do in November and December?
Shoot the ball. It's no secret that's the one weakness of this team. The team makes that not a weakness anymore. They're not going to make it a strength, but if they make it not a critical weakness, and all of a sudden this team's ceiling flies off the hinges, right? Because you have a talent in Trey Jackson Davis in solo carry games. You have a dude in Race Thompson, such a good piece for any basketball team. Xavier Johnson's such a competent point guard who can also shoot the ball a bit. If you can get some wing players in there, all of a sudden this team becomes so dynamic. It's going to be so hard, even on a bad night, to beat this team, right? This team is playing terribly. They're still going to have ways to pull out games. If they can just shoot the ball at a higher rate than 35%, that's all I'm asking. If you can shoot 35%, like, please, that's it. It's not that hard.
We had a podcast episode on this. You guys can find it wherever you listen to podcasts, talking about Indiana's glaring weakness going into this upcoming season, shooting the basketball. And all Matt and I said was, we're not looking for them to be the Golden State Warriors. We're just asking for a couple percent. That's all Indiana's got to do in order to reach the shooting levels of previous Final Four teams. That's all we're asking for. Not that much. Like a couple percentage points when it's all said and done can make all the difference in the world. For me personally, shooting, I'm looking specifically at Trace Jackson Davis, right? Can you show some comfort in that jump shot? And then I've got my eyes on the shooting guards and the small forwards. I'm really excited to see this group coming into the season. Tamar Bates, Miller Kopp, CJ Gunn, Caleb Banks, Anthony Leal. Who of those players are really going to take a step forward here? Maybe missing one or two guys off the top of my head, but overall, the 2s and the 3s on this team, who's going to take a stride forward? Who's going to stand out? Is Jordan Geronimo going to slide and play a small forward type role as well? If you're playing the 2, if you're playing the 3, all I'm saying is I have my eye on you. Again, it's really that group of Bates, Kopp, Gunn, Leal, Banks that I'm keeping my attention to over the course of the non-conference slate. Matt, as we wind down here on this Friday night, going into the weekend, any closing thoughts as we wind down here? Look, IU basketball has finalized their non-conference schedule. What's on your mind here as we close down shop this week?
I like this non-conference schedule. I wish we maybe had 1 or 2 more games just to kind of puff up the record at the end of the day. Make it look nicer on the paper and on those bracket casts. But this is a team that has goals and ambitions that are higher than just beating Morehead State. So they need to take care of these guys with absolutely no qualms and no bumps, no speed bumps are allowed.
Style points matter this part of the season.
This team is good enough to where they should be beating these teams by doing 360 alley-oops off the backboards. They are so far and above these teams, talent-wise, conditioning-wise, facilities wise, coaching, you name it, in every single facet, they are better than these teams. Which of course gives the other teams a bit of a chip on the shoulder. That's the only thing that the other teams have on us. So again, I don't think we'll be sitting here in December being like, what happened at the Morehead State game? I don't think it's not going to be happening. But I'm preparing myself like every good Indiana fan should do for some heart attacks, because it's just bound to happen in college basketball. The ball can just bounce a different way and your team has to react to it.
Yeah, I mean that kind of brings me to my best and worst case scenarios in these non-conference slate, because there are going to be games where it's tied with 12 minutes left, tied with 10 minutes left, tied with 8 minutes left, maybe 6 or 4, even if it's not one of the 4 beasts on a non-conference slate. So, hang on for the ride here. To me, as I look at it, though, that really does bring me to what I think as far as the worst case scenario in a non-conference slate. What's the worst thing that could happen, right? Because as far as Mike Woodson's concerned, he's been shrewd about his scheduling. 4 powers, 7 cupcakes, makes sense as far as the scheduling piece is concerned. The worst case scenario to me is someone significant gets injured, right? And so this is the part of the slate, especially when you talk about the 7 cupcakes on this upcoming campaign. Manage the minutes smartly, maximize your chances when Trace Jackson Davis and Xavier Johnson and Jalen Hood-Schifino and Race Thompson and Miller Copper on the court. Make sure they squeeze as much as they can out of the minutes that they play, but there's really no reason for them against Bethune-Cookman or against Kennesaw State or against Elon to be playing 38 minutes a night. Yeah. The best case scenario is Indiana shows sharp shooting ability. They show real togetherness and chemistry and camaraderie. They win a majority of those games against Arizona, Kansas, North Carolina, Xavier. They gain some style points along the way. They even maybe beat an Illinois or a Michigan or a Purdue in that first Big Ten week in between those superpower games. And we talk about this team as the top 10 rosters. So,
yep.
Can't wait to see how that plays out. But
absolutely,
that about wraps it up for our 265th episode of the Hoosier Sound. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your support. But as always, thank you for listening, Hoosier Nation, and we will see you next time.
Peace and love. Go Hoosiers.